Yeah, that's what I would like to do is make a plea for him to turn himself in. That's what I really want.
I've never ever seen him argue, have a disagreement with his mom or my nanny.
Yeah.
Like never. Like they were the people that actually took care of him, raised him, who he loved the most, who loved him the most. It's so out of character. It's just
It's shocking.
why? Like why? What's the reason?
We understand that he was homeschooled, never had any problems with the family, any indications that there was any form of violence, particularly at this level, inside that home.
This is Lee Collins III, a 22-year-old from a quiet neighborhood in Louisiana. On Easter Sunday, April 5th, 2026, he allegedly picked up a gun inside his own home and shot the two women. And the part that is going to stay with you long after this video ends is not just what he did, but who these women were to him, and the fact that nobody who knew this family ever saw it coming. To really understand what happened on that Easter Sunday, you have to understand where Lee Collins III came from, because on paper, this does not look like a household where something like this was supposed to happen. St. Bernard Parish is a small, close-knit community just southeast of New Orleans, the kind of place where people have been living on the same streets for generations and everybody knows their neighbors. The Collins family had been part of that community for years, living on the 2000 block of Centani Drive. And according to public records, Trinell Collins had been tied to that address for at least the decade. Trinell Collins was 55 years old, born in November of 1970, and she spent most of her adult life in that neighborhood raising her son, Lee Collins III. She lived there with her mother, Mary Major, who was 75, and by all accounts, just as much of a parent to Lee as Trinell was. And that young man, Lee Collins III, was homeschooled his entire life. Everything he knew came from inside that house and from those two women. And before this story broke, if you went looking for him online, you would find almost nothing at all. He did not exist in the public record, which is unusual for somebody his age.
Just the fact that a son would kill his mother and his grandmother and attempt to kill his father. Don't know what happened, what made the guy turn this violent.
Sheriff James Pullman, who oversees the St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's Office, confirmed publicly that Collins had no criminal history and zero prior signs of violence. His neighbor, Derek Alvarez, backed that up word for word. Never got in trouble, never did nothing. He was always homeschooled. So yeah, that's the truth. He never got in trouble. Now, there are claims going around on social media, mostly in Facebook comment sections under local news posts, that Lee Collins is autistic and nonverbal, and that what officials are calling a verbal argument was really more of a behavioral episode that got out of control. But no official source has confirmed any diagnosis of autism or nonverbal status for Lee Collins III. We are going to address that question properly later in this video, using a case where autism was actually confirmed in court and where a judge made a direct ruling on it. But for now, let us stick to what is verified.
It was horrible. When I first heard it, I'm like, no way, how? Because the family is so tight-knit and nobody know, you know what I'm saying? Nobody knew about none of this going on.
On Easter Sunday, April 5th, 2026, there had been plans for a neighborhood gathering earlier that day, the kind of thing that makes Easter feel like a normal holiday. By the evening, though, something was going very wrong inside that house on Centani Drive. At around 7:45 that evening, deputies from the St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's Office were called to the address for what was reported as a disturbance. When they arrived, they found two women inside the house with gunshot wounds. Based on what investigators pieced together afterward, an argument had started between Lee and his mother, Trinell, and it turned physical. When that was happening, Mary Major, his 75-year-old grandmother, stepped in to try to break it up and get between them. She put herself in the middle of it to try to protect her daughter and bring things down. And according to investigators, that is the moment when Lee walked away from the argument. He went into another room in the house and came back with a gun that was already kept there, a family-owned weapon that had been in the home before any of this started. He shot his mother first, then turned and shot his grandmother. Lee's father was in the house too. Lee allegedly pointed the gun at him and fired, but the shot missed. His father survived and is now one of the main witnesses investigators are relying on to understand what happened. Both women were taken to hospital and were pronounced dead from their gunshot wounds. By the time deputies arrived at that house, Lee Collins was already gone.
Loving people.
The best of the best. They cared for people, people cared for them. My nanny she was just a sweetheart.
At his press conference the next day, Sheriff Pullman said something that tells you everything about how much sense any of this made to the people who knew this family. "I don't know what happened to make a guy turn violent in what began as an argument." And a family relative named Joseph Major said something that hits even harder when you think about who those women were to Lee. "I've never ever seen them argue, have disagreement with his mom, like never. Like they were the people that actually took care of him, raised him, who he loved the most, who loved him the most." The two women who poured everything into raising this man were now gone, and the man they raised was the one who shot them. While deputies were processing what they had found inside that house on Centani Drive, Lee Collins was already moving. He had left on foot immediately after the shooting. Not far from the family home, he found a white 2019 Ford stake bed truck parked at a nearby business and stole it, with Louisiana license plate Z258037. He got on Interstate 10 and started driving east. License plate cameras caught the truck moving into Mississippi at around 9 o'clock that Sunday night. By the next day, Monday, April 6th, he had made it into Alabama. The truck itself was eventually located and recovered by the Bay Minette Police Department in Baldwin County, Alabama, about 150 miles from the scene of the shooting. Lee had left the vehicle behind at some point and continued into Mobile by other means.
I'm here at the St. Bernard Sheriff's Office with an update on the double murder that took place on Easter Sunday. Now, Sheriff's Office say that 22-year-old Lee Collins III got into an argument with his mother. His grandmother tried to intervene. They say Collins left the room, came back, and shot both his mother and his grandmother, who had been pronounced dead. Now, they say that Collins fled the scene on foot, but eventually stole a vehicle from a nearby business. He has since fled the state and is believed to be in Mississippi at the time. They do consider him armed and dangerous.
That is where things take a turn nobody expected. A law enforcement agency in the Baldwin County area ran into Lee, and he gave them a completely false identity. That agency then took him to Alta Point Health, a mental health crisis center in Mobile, Alabama, where he walked in, gave another fake name, and tried to check himself in as a patient with no ID documents whatsoever. The staff at Alta Point went through their standard intake process, and things started not adding up pretty quickly. His story had holes in it, and then one of the staff members, while doing their job, saw something that changed everything. They recognized his face from a news article that had gone out about the Louisiana murder suspect. Laurel Harvard, Alta Point's Assistant Director of Crisis Services, described what happened. A staff member recognized the individual from a news article. "This is very out of the ordinary for us. We're a treatment facility. This was more, once it becomes a safety concern, that would be the only time we would get law enforcement involved." They called the Mobile Police Department right away, and when officers arrived at Alta Point, here's what they found. Blake Brown, the public safety manager for Mobile, told reporters exactly how the arrest went down. "We arrived to Alta Point, and luckily the subject was sleeping, so we were actually able to take him into custody relatively easily. Less than 24 hours after shooting his mother and his grandmother, stealing a truck, crossing from Louisiana through Mississippi into Alabama, walking into a mental health clinic under a fake name with no ID documents whatsoever, Lee Collins III was found sleeping in the waiting area."
This is searching for a man wanted for a double shooting that left 2 women dead. Deputies were called to a disturbance Sunday night around 7:45 in the 2200 block of Centenny Drive in the St. Bernard community. When they got there, they found 2 women, the suspect's mother, 55-year-old Trinell Collins, and the suspect's grandmother, 75-year-old Mary Major. Both had been shot and were taken to the hospital where they died. Investigators say the suspect is 22-year-old Lee Collins, III, who ran from the scene and then stole a truck to get away. Detectives say he may be driving a white 2019 Ford stake bed truck with a Louisiana license plate. Collins is wanted on 2 counts of second-degree murder.
When officers interviewed him, he admitted who he actually was. Breaking news update. The man accused of the Easter Sunday killing of his mother and grandmother in St. Bernard Parish is now in custody. Less than 3 hours ago, the St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's Office announced 22-year-old Lee Collins III was arrested today in Mobile, Alabama. Investigators say Collins got into a fight with his mother yesterday. His grandmother tried to intervene. They then say he went into a room, grabbed a gun, and shot them both. Deputies say he ran away from the scene and was seen driving into Mississippi. Today, the Mobile Police Department captured him and is now working to have him extradited back to Louisiana. Lee Collins III is now charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 for each woman he allegedly shot. He is currently being held in Mobile County Metro Jail while extradition back to Louisiana is being arranged. As far as evidence goes, the gun was recovered from inside the family home. His surviving father is a key witness. The stolen truck has been recovered, and his flight across 2 state lines under a fake name adds another layer to the case against him. No motive has been officially confirmed, and when the case eventually goes to trial in Louisiana, we'll learn more.
Yeah, so last night around 7:45 p.m., deputies responded to a disturbance call in the 2200 block of Centenny Drive down in Poydras. While en route, the deputies got an update of the call that a couple of people were shot inside the home that we responded to. Deputies arrived and discovered 2 females that have been shot. EMS arrived, transported both females to UMC where they both later died. Preliminary investigation indicates that a 22-year-old male that lives inside the home had an altercation, started out verbal with his mother, turned physical. The grandmother intervened, tried to break it up. The 22-year-old suspect retreated to a room only to return shortly afterwards with a weapon, shot both his mother and his grandmother, and then fled out the house. This morning we discovered a stolen vehicle that was taken in a nearby business. Video surveillance indicates that the suspect stole the vehicle shortly after the shooting and fled the parish around a little after 9 p.m.
Does this suspect have any prior charges or similar incidents?
All indications is that this 22-year-old's never been in trouble before. From what we understand, that he was homeschooled, never had any problems with the family, any indications that there was any form of violence, particularly at this level, inside that home. It was after he shot both the mother and the grandmother, he attempted to shoot the father inside the home, but he missed. Not sure if he realized he missed, and then he fled the home.
Now, here is where this story goes somewhere bigger, because the question circling this case, what actually happens when autism or a mental health condition is involved in violence like this, is a question that has actually been answered in a courtroom. Not with social media speculation, but with a real judge, real evidence, and a real ruling on the record. And that case is worth understanding because it changes how you look at everything we just told you. His name is Nicholas Prosper. He was 18 years old when he murdered his mother and his 2 younger siblings in Luton, England in September of 2024. Autism traits were confirmed by a court-appointed psychiatrist. His defense raised it at sentencing, and the judge ruled on it directly. But before we get to that ruling, you need to understand who Nicholas Prosper was. Nicholas Prosper was born in December of 2005. As a child, he was quiet and did well in school, interested in computers, and had a small group of friends. His parents, Juliana Falcone and Raymond Prosper, separated when Nicholas was around 8 or 9 years old, and after that he grew up in a flat on the 8th floor of a tower block in Luton with his mother and his 2 younger siblings, Giselle, who was 13, and Kyle, who was 16. His mother, Juliana, worked full-time and was, by all accounts, a caring and attentive parent. She noticed when things started going wrong with her son and tried to get him help.
And then fled out the house. This morning we discovered a stolen vehicle that was taken in a nearby business. Video surveillance indicates that the suspect stole the vehicle shortly after the shooting and fled the parish around 9, a little after 9 p.m.
Does this affect have any prior charges or similar incidents?
All indications is that this 22-year-old's never been in trouble before. From what we understand, that he was homeschooled, never had any problems with the family, any indications that there was any form of violence, particularly at this level, inside that home. It was after he shot both the mother and the grandmother. He attempted to shoot the father inside the home, but he missed. Not sure if he realized he missed, and then he fled the home.
So there were other witnesses in the home at the time that this happened?
Yes, we do have a witness.
Sheriff, any indicator, obviously you're still investigating this, any idea from your investigators and deputies where this person may have fled to?
No, we know that he fled the state into the Mississippi area. We've been working with the Mississippi authorities along with other authorities in this region. We had put out a bolo as soon as we discovered that the vehicle was missing. So we did that along with the arrest warrant that we have for the suspect on 2 counts of second-degree murder.
Was the vehicle spotted in Mississippi? Is that how you know?
We know through our LPR camera systems, both here in Louisiana and in Mississippi, that it reached Mississippi.
Around 2022, when Nicholas was about 16 and had just finished his main school exams, he went back to continue studying and almost immediately started falling apart. He became angry and withdrawn, unable or unwilling to engage with people around him. His teachers suspected he might have autism spectrum disorder. His parents made a referral to the local mental health service for young people. Nicholas refused to take part in any of it, refused any kind of assessment or any help. He was eventually told to leave the school in March of 2023 without finishing his studies. That was the last time any outside institution had real contact with him. After that, he pulled away from the real world almost entirely and spent the next year and a half living almost completely online, going deeper and darker into content that had no business being in anyone's head. What Nicholas Prosper was actually doing on the internet during that period is one of the most disturbing parts of this entire case. He became completely obsessed with mass shootings, specifically the Sandy Hook and Virginia Tech, and with the men who carried them out. He studied their methods, read their writings, and spent time in online spaces that were full of the most extreme content you can imagine. He also built up a collection of over 200 illegal images of children. From the outside, though, none of this was visible. He occasionally went to the gym. He worked at a supermarket stacking shelves for a few months. To the people around him, he just looked like a young man who had dropped out of school and was not doing much. What was happening inside his head was something completely different. He spent about a year planning an attack. He chose his old primary school, the same school he had gone to as a happy little kid, as his target. The school had children between the ages of 4 and 5 years old.
So there were other witnesses in the home at the time that this happened?
Yes, we do have a witness.
Sheriff, any indicator, obviously you're still investigating this, any idea from your investigators and deputies where this person may have fled to?
No, we know that he fled the state into the Mississippi area. We've been working with the Mississippi authorities along with other authorities in this region. We had put out a bolo as soon as we discovered that the vehicle was missing. So we did that along with the arrest warrant that we have for the suspect on 2 counts of second-degree murder.
Was the vehicle spotted in Mississippi? Is that how you know?
We know through our LPR camera systems, both here in Louisiana and in Mississippi, that it reached Mississippi.
I'm here at the St. Bernard Sheriff's Office with an update on the double murder that took place on Easter Sunday. Now, Sheriff's Office say that 22-year-old Lee Collins III got into an argument with his mother. His grandmother tried to intervene. They say Collins left the room, came back, and shot both his mother and his grandmother, who have been pronounced dead. Now, they say that Collins fled the scene on foot, but eventually stole a vehicle from a nearby business. He has since fled the state and is believed to be in Mississippi at the time. They do consider him armed and dangerous.
He put together a specific set of clothes he called a uniform and recorded a video in advance. And then, the day before the murders, on September 12, 2024, he forged a police officer's signature on an official firearms document and used it to legally buy a 12-gauge shotgun and 100 cartridges for £650. He had already tested the gun inside his bedroom by shooting it into a stuffed toy. In the early hours of Friday, September 13, 2024, Prosper was still awake in the flat, still online. At around 4:50 in the morning, his mother, Juliana, woke up and could tell immediately that something was terribly wrong. She walked out and found her son standing in the hallway with the shotgun. She tried to stop him and physically fought him. The court found that she had wounds on her hands and arms from trying to grab the weapon, and then he shot her in the head at very close range. He placed a novel on top of her body. The title of that novel was How to Kill Your Family. His 13-year-old sister, Giselle, woke up, put on her glasses, and tried to run and hide in the living room. He chased her down and shot her at point-blank range. His 16-year-old brother, Kyle, ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife to try to defend himself. Prosper shot him in the chest, and then, while Kyle was still alive and moving, stabbed and cut him more than 100 times across his entire body while Kyle begged him to stop. He then shot Kyle in the head. The whole attack was over before 5:30 in the morning.
So there were other witnesses in the home at the time that this happened?
Yes, we do have a witness.
Sheriff, any indicator, obviously you're still investigating this, any idea from your investigators and deputies where this person may have fled to?
No, we know that he fled the state into the Mississippi area. We've been working with the Mississippi authorities along with other authorities in this region. We had put out a bolo as soon as we discovered that the vehicle was missing. So we did that along with the arrest warrant that we have for the suspect on 2 counts of second-degree murder.
Was the vehicle spotted in Mississippi? Is that how you know?
We know through our LPR camera systems, both here in Louisiana and in Mississippi, that it reached Mississippi last night.
Can you speak to, unfortunately this happened on Easter Sunday, how this can impact a family and a community, especially on a holiday like that?
Yeah, I can't imagine how it will impact a family. I only can imagine. It's a tragic event. Just the fact that a son would kill his mother and his grandmother, and attempt to kill his father. Don't know what happened, what made the guy turn this violent. On which started as an argument that became physical and then ultimately deadly. I can't imagine how something like this happens.
Prosper walked out of the flat still wearing his prepared outfit, intending to go to the primary school and carry out a mass shooting there as well. He only gave up on that part of the plan because police were already active in the area. He hid in some bushes nearby for nearly 2 hours, posted his pre-recorded video online, and then surrendered to officers at 7:55 that morning in a cheerful mood, asking them whether the schools had been locked down. At trial, the court heard from a forensic psychiatrist named Dr. Ian Koyman, who had assessed Prosper after his arrest. His conclusion was that Nicholas Prosper had traits of autism spectrum disorder, though not at the most severe end. The doctor said those traits explained most of the unusual things about how Prosper related to people and why his fixations became so extreme. Prosper's defense team used this at sentencing, arguing that his autism should be treated as a reason to reduce his sentence. The judge, Mrs. Justice Bobby Chima Greb, addressed it directly. She acknowledged that autism traits were present and that they explained some things about his behavior, and then she said this, on the record in open court. Your ASD does not correlate to an increased risk of violence, nor did ASD in this case impair your ability to understand the nature of your conduct, exercise self-control, or form rational judgments when you decided to commit violent crimes.
I'm here at the St. Bernard Sheriff's Office with an update on the double murder that took place on Easter Sunday. Now, Sheriff's Office say that 22-year-old Lee Collins III got into an argument with his mother. His grandmother tried to intervene. They say Collins left the room, came back, and shot both his mother and his grandmother, who had been pronounced dead. Now, they say that Collins fled the scene on foot, but eventually stole a vehicle from a nearby business. He has since fled the state and is believed to be in Mississippi at the time. They do consider him armed and dangerous.
Autism was real in this case. It was documented and assessed by a professional, and the court still said it did not take away his ability to know what he was doing was wrong. It did not reduce what he deserved as punishment. Nicholas Prosper was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 49 years, meaning the earliest he could even be considered for release is when he is in his late 60s. So what do these two cases mean when you put them side by side? They are not the same situation. Lee Collins has not been tried, and nothing about any mental health diagnosis has been officially confirmed in his case. What the Prosper case does is show you what it looks like when that question actually gets answered properly inside a courtroom with real evidence and a real ruling. And the answer was clear. You can acknowledge that someone processes the world differently without using that as a reason to excuse what they chose to do in it. The question that is still open in the Lee Collins case is the one the sheriff himself could not answer.
Are you releasing the identities of the two victims then?
We did, yes, and it will be part of the press release.
Sheriff, knowing how unique the truck appeared, like how far and how long do you think, given the amount of cameras that we have here, how long do you think this could go on? Because this is a rather easily identifiable truck.
Yeah, and it's got a license plate on it, and the license plate readers, that's exactly what they're designed to do, is capture the license plate and alert us where this vehicle was last seen. So we do know that it didn't reach Mississippi last night. We've been working with the Gulf Coast authorities in Mississippi right now. They're searching all areas. Just if it's still on the interstate, if it's going to pass the camera and it still has a license plate, then we'll get an indication of that. But we don't know if he abandoned the vehicle, at what point. We're not sure. You know, once he left this area, we're working closely with authorities in other states to try to locate this vehicle and locate the suspect. You got to assume that he's still armed and very dangerous, you know. So we're just letting people know, just be on the lookout, particularly law enforcement.
Was there anybody else in the house besides the two victims, the father and the suspect?
You had four of them in the house. You had the suspect, the mother, and the grandmother, and the father of the suspect.
Where was the last place that truck was spotted in Mississippi?
Just reaching crossing the state line in that area.
About what time was that?
I think a little after 9.
Last night?
Yeah.
That was on
I-10.
Sheriff, this type of thing doesn't happen often in the parish, especially down near Poydras. Like, can you talk just about the rare nature of what you're dealing with right now?
You know, I'm not sure if this is it's unusual for any place, for this to happen. It's homicides in general in St. Bernard Parish is very rare. We may have averaged about 3 a year. But when you have something like this tragic, for a family, it's unbelievable. I just can't understand it.
Sure.
Thank you so much,
Sheriff.
All right.
What actually happened inside that house on Easter Sunday that led a young man with no history of violence to pick up a gun and shoot the two people who had given him everything? Nobody knows yet. And right now, the two people who knew Lee better than anyone in the world, the two people who spent their lives inside that house with him, the two people who might have been able to answer that question, are gone. Trinell Collins was 55 years old. Mary Major was 75. They were his whole world, and by every account, he was theirs. Lee Collins III is currently sitting in Mobile County Metro Jail, waiting to be sent back to Louisiana to face his charges. When that happens and the case moves through the courts, more of what went on in that house is going to come out. We will be following every step of it. What do you think about this case? What do you think could have pushed Lee over the edge? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.